All right, welcome to the fourth grade summer school STEM plan overview video. So this is just going to be, my goal is 10 minutes or less. You get a sense of what you're going to be doing over the next 4 weeks. So let's jump in. Overview of the project. The ultimate game, the ultimate question is, how can we make games for the mercado? And this was an activity that was done last year with the fourth and fifth graders, and it was a huge hit, huge hit. And so folks have asked to make sure that happens again because the third graders are probably looking forward to it, hoping for it. And so, yeah, we just built the entire unit all around this idea of making arcade games. So just brief overview again. Week 1, going to kind of look at what the engineering design process is. We're going to have a hands-on engineering activity, and then get to build a table from paper. And then week 2, you're going to really start in on the process of designing the arcade game for the students. And that's like the rest of the time, basically. It takes a while to go through this process. Down below this initial 4 weeks here, I have some key resources. If you are not familiar with the engineering design process, or even if you are, I encourage you to watch this video. It's just a few minutes long, and it will give you my take on the engineering design process, and more importantly, what are some of the key things to try to get the students to take away from this whole process. So please look at that. And then I do this weird thing, must do, should do, and aspire to do. So it kind of prioritizes different parts of the lessons. I do have a video here that explains what I'm talking about, so feel free to go watch that as well. There's a little list of material needs. This is a short-ish list. Depending on what the students choose for their projects, you may have more items that will need to be gotten. So just kind of be prepared for that. All right, so first week, day 1, we're going to jump in with the anchoring phenomenon. So again, this must do here. You want to start with this by watching Kane's arcade video. And this was, again, the video that sparked all the interest last year in the students making these arcade games. So we're going to use this as our anchoring phenomenon. Even though it's a video, it's not really a true phenomenon. It's going to hopefully get them excited. And then everything we do, we can kind of keep going back to Kane's experience and how we're trying to recreate that idea at the mercado. Driving question. Basically, we've been asked to create an arcade for the mercado. And so, like, how do we do that? What's the process to go through to make that happen? Driving question board. So in this case, for the driving question board, I think the engineering design process is a really good one. So if there's any way for you to take this image and blow it up and have it printed for your room or projected or something like that, so students, or even just small pieces of paper that are nearby that students can kind of refer to on a regular basis, be really helpful for them to kind of understand the process and to see where they are throughout the entire unit. There's a little video here from this website about introduction to engineering, and it's a good little video. Has students talking about what they think engineering is and ideas that they have for what they want to create. So it's a cool video. It is a should do, so don't have to do it if you don't have time. Day 2, there's going to be these little stations, little engineering design stations, and there's 5 different stations where students will rotate through, and they'll each get a turn to do all these different activities. And it's just a way for them to kind of get a sense of some different engineering design concepts and ideas. I made these should-dos. They aren't essential to the whole unit, but I assume you're probably going to do it regardless. And then one thing I think is a good idea, but again, this is only if you have time, is some sort of discussion. And what did you learn about engineering today? How much this helped build arcade games? All right, so then we're getting into day 3, and this is where you really start to have the fun of the paper table challenge. And the paper table challenge is one where students use 8 sheets of newspaper and 1 piece of thick cardboard to try to support a heavy book. And it doesn't have to be a book, it could be anything, right? It could be a bunch of thin books if you wanted to. Like, can you hold this book, and then, like, how many? Can you hold 6? Can you hold 8? Can you hold 10? How many books can you hold on your table? So that's the idea here, and give them for their first iteration. Just really don't give them much information except for this idea, like brainstorm some ideas what you might do. Give them 5 minutes for that, and then have them jump in and start building, and then see how it goes. So the whole point is to go to failure, to go to collapse. So it's okay if that happens. You actually are trying to see how far you can push these tables. That's the end of the week then. And so when you come back the following week, ideally you have some sort of discussion at the end of this, like how did it go? What did you learn? Blah, blah, blah. When they come back on Monday, then this is where they will redo that challenge again now that they've learned something. And this is that engineering design process. So they go through the process, they go through a build cycle, and they learn something, and now they do it again. And hopefully the idea is that they will improve, or they'll get creative and they'll try to do some crazy stuff. There's some optional criteria changing you can do. So you can say that today's challenge is about how tall of a table can you make with those same materials and still hold that single book. That's an option. Or you can give them a smaller piece of tape and say you must build one with very little tape. Or you can reverse it and say use your tape to really help you build something. So there's lots of things that you can do to change the constraint. It's up to you. Whatever you think is going to work for your students and what's going to get them excited. Then, day 5, Tuesday of the second week, you are going to jump into this arcade challenge. So creating these games that can be played. And so this time really be very methodical about pointing out on the engineer design process where you're at. So first we're at the ask phase, and then the research phase, and then the imagine phase. Give them time to go look up different projects and what they can do. One optional idea is to have them create an interactive notebook that they can take notes in. So as they do their initial design phase, and then reflect every day. So if you want to include writing in this project, you can have them reflect on at the end of every day, clean up, and then do a 5-minute reflection on what happened that day, how did it go, what are they hoping to do tomorrow. It's a real nice one. There may be some students. This was the teacher who did this last year was Edith, and she said that she did have some students who are really resistant to making arcade games, and they wanted to make prizes instead. So have that in your back pocket in case somebody, ideally everybody makes arcade games, but if there's somebody who's really resistant to it, see some other options like slime or beaded bracelets or some other ideas out here. All right, getting into day 6, this is where they're going to draw a blueprint, quote unquote blueprint. And I've got an example here. I'll probably redo that. I don't like it a whole lot. And get a sense for that and make sure they have materials list, because you're going to need to get these materials, or somebody else is going to need to get the materials for you. Having them put labels on their drawings, measurements. And so this could be a big part of their math curriculum, is actually making sure they can measure things appropriately, maybe even using some fractions, right? Maybe using some halves and quarters and things like that. Once day 7, this is the last day of the second week, they should have their designs done by the end of that week. So that's the kind of like, if you don't, you're behind and you need to get moving. Going into week 3, this is when they're going to start prototyping things. And this, I strongly encourage. Some games are going to be easier than others, but I really like the idea of them trying out some different build ideas and just seeing if they work. Maybe if they need walls, how can you build a strong wall? Is it the type of glue, or is it some taping process, or something else you can do to create stronger games, right? And so, or even like if they're trying to do some sort of game where they're going to flick something off a spoon or whatever, they need to try it and see if it actually works. And so not building the whole game first and then waiting to try it, like try little pieces to start, the kind of proof of concept idea, and then build the whole game. And it's okay if these prototypes fail. That's what it's all about, is trying to learn how that works. And then again, day 9, this is where they're going to start redesigning based on failures from day 1, and also maybe some learning that they had from other students. So I have down here at day 3, it'd be nice if, and you can do this as often as you want, but it'd be nice if there was a time for students to share out with each other what they're learning in this process, and what some of the successes they've had or failures they've had. So this worked, this didn't work. and so they can learn from each other. One important thing, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but one important thing is that this is not a competition. You're not trying to build the best, like when we're doing the table part in week 1, it's not about building the best table, it's about building the best table you can, right? So there's a difference there. We're not trying to compete against each other, we're trying to work together to create the best tables possible. And if they get creative and they're like, hey, well we're going to work together, and now we have 16 pieces of paper or whatever, that's not wrong or bad. Like you can let them mess around with that idea if you want to. Yeah, so the other thing I forgot to mention on day 7 was there is an image here that shows some different cardboard construction technique ideas, ways to make different connections and joints and things like that. So you might have that image or similar images available to them so they can see some different ways they might attach items. All right, so week 3 is really about trying things out, redesigning, building, so that when you get to the last week, they're just busting out the building and making sure it's done and ready for the last day where you're basically going to do the setup, right? The Mercado setup. So I have a shoot in here for one idea was to have a showcase of the games before you take it to the Mercado. So have other students walk around and take a look at it, maybe play them a little bit. That's the idea. So, and maybe even you might coordinate with the 5th grade team as well, because they're making carnival games. So you're going to have an arcade game, small tabletop game. They're going to have larger carnival type games. So you might have a little switcheroo where they look at each other's and try it out. So check with the 5th grade teacher and see if that's of interest to them. And then having the students go through a final reflection process is great. You may choose to have the project get finished before they do the reflection. That's fine. If they need more time, use it for building the projects. But ideally, those reflections are really important. All right, so that is the project. Down here I have a larger picture of the blueprint. That's the project. I hope you have a great time. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help out in any way I can. All right, take care.